Yep, it's good to meet you all. Thanks for joining us. I work as an industrial resource efficiency and circular economy policy advisor here in DESNZ. So similarly to Josh in energy security and net zero, I'm supporting the cross-government and task force effort in the transport roadmap. So the use of transport for people and goods is certainly highly material and carbon intensive, but work by the CE task force and government narrowed the scope to the automotive supply chain in the first instance. So looking at how we can increase circularity and resource efficiency of light vehicles, as these types of passenger vehicles and commercial vehicles are highly material intensive, incorporating carbon intensive materials such as steel, aluminium, glass, etc., as well as quantities of rare earth elements, critical minerals, which have high levels of upstream emissions due to mining, processing, and being sourced from abroad. So to that end, we've kind of elaborated on this vision that we can in the future sort of seek to strive for a thriving domestic ecosystem of businesses, looking to manufacture, repair, remanufacture, easily disassemble and reuse and recycle the next generation of light vehicles, their parts and components, also thinking about the large volume of vehicles which are on the roads today, which will come to end of life. And of course, with kind of true sustainability and accessibility in mind, looking at this more widely, it needs to be paired with kind of future work by the Department of Transport on the integrated national transport strategy, which is set to be published later this year, and that will look to make walking and cycling more attractive and accessible for those who choose them, kind of optimizing the use of resources by people nationwide. So there are various asks of the automotive sector and the kind of wider supply chains in this country, the wider sector. There's a bold ambition set out in the Advanced Manufacturing Sector Plan to amp up production to 1.3 million vehicles in the UK by 2035. And at the same time, there's a similarly sort of bold zero emission vehicle mandate, so that all cars and vans hitting the road by 2035 will be zero emission at tailpipe. And to kind of meet these goals, a new kind of approach to resource use and manufacture is required, and in these supply chains and how these materials are treated at end of life. So a circular kind of supply chain should support those goals, smooth the path to 100% zero emission vehicles, and the transition to electric vehicles will change the shape of kind of the material demand, requiring more materials for the electronics, the electric powertrains, and the EV traction batteries, which will be in kind of the next generation of modern vehicles. And at this point, it's really useful to kind of highlight that the automotives sector is in some ways a circular success story. These are assets which are kind of highly valuable, they're highly repairable, and they are used for a long time, and a lot of the materials are highly recyclable. There are existing targets for material recovery, but there's some room to sort of go further and see what we can do about the quantities of scrap and waste which are being exported. So circularity in this sector should be shoring up supply chains, particularly for those critical raw materials and rare earth elements, which are going to be fundamental for the energy transition, and which we're going to see demand for globally ramping up over the next 5 to 10 years. It should go some way to creating jobs in growing and new industries in remanufacture, repair, new recycling processes, and to some extent result in a triple benefit to consumers and businesses and the environment through reducing the cost to all three respectively, including through measures which hopefully will shore up kind of the emerging second-hand electric vehicle market. So in terms of our areas of focus, these are kind of listed on the right-hand side of the slide, but really what we would like to see in this scenario is a strengthened UK capability in circular activities such as remanufacture, reuse, disassembly. Obviously, as I say, this is done well presently, but of course, as more and more vehicles become electric vehicles, we need the skills and ability to deal with electric vehicle traction batteries, which are going to be coming down the road and are going to be highly valuable. We'd like to see the average light vehicle have a lower embodied carbon, and that to be introduced at the design stage by reducing virgin material and energy consumption, by extending the lifespan of the vehicle and its parts and localizing supply chains. We'd like to see the development of circular systems for critical raw materials, so making sure that there's a circular system which the materials coming out of end-of-life batteries can go back into, and that there are systems for kind of the reuse and recycling of rare earth magnets, and ensure that all of that's underpinned with a robust data foundation for circular supply chains, because we do have a lack of high quality data, which is kind of compromising the ability to make effective interventions. So to that end, we're kind of looking at setting out the vision of what we want to incentivize and see how government and industry can work together to drive clarity of that vision. So better information for consumers and businesses, so to understand what the optimal choice is when procuring parts or procuring the final product, using procurement as an early moving lever to encourage experimental measures. Secondly to that, we'd look at supporting businesses, and that would be through looking at how innovation funding should be channeled more specifically into circular measures, and what skills support is needed and where specifically the skills in these types of circular supply chains are. And thirdly, we need to look at kind of the regulatory frameworks and systems surrounding this. So there are a wealth of regulatory frameworks to look at here, including incoming EU battery regulations, end-of-life vehicle regulations coming from the EU, and how permitting and definition of waste regulations can support or how they hinder kind of measures to make the supply chain more circular. And again, finally, underpinning this with better data.